Back with more from our favourite F1 journalist. The BBC's Andrew Benson has decided to inform us all that Verstappen has lost all respect. He's quoted again for Russell. Okay, there's a nice picture. Andrew Benson, F1 correspondent, likes to tell us who's got respect for who, because that's relevant, isn't it, Andrew? Thank you for that. So what we're going to go through here is the fact that Max Verstappen, the perpetrator, has lost respect for the person who he has harmed. Oh, he's the victim again, isn't he? Is Max Verstappen? Max Verstappen has lost respect for him because Max Verstappen is the victim. Yeah, you've impeded somebody in qualifying, but now you've lost respect for him. You're the victim. This is typical narcissistic behaviour. Okay, gaslighting, projecting blame elsewhere, and this is the poster boy of Formula One. This is the poster team of F1, Red Bull, because after the race today, you got his race engineer, who is of the same ilk, a same narcissistic, see you next Tuesday, Giampiero Lambesi. Oh, you didn't need to ease off there, did you, today, Max? You weren't easing off there, were you? You know, trying to rub it in the face of people. Oh, you see, that showed him there, didn't it? Whatever he said, you know it was designed to get back at that, projecting themselves as being wrongfully vilified. When clearly, Max Verstappen was committing an infringement in qualifying, was driving unnecessarily slowly on the racing line, impeding his fellow competitor, as his fellow competitor was on the way to trying to set a fast lap time. And whether you want to try and argue that fact or not, that's the situation. Whether he was on the lap time or on the lead up to actually embarking upon that lap that he was trying to set a fast time on, he was impeded by Max Verstappen in doing so. Purposefully. Max Verstappen even admitting to knowing he was there and didn't move out of the way. Stayed on the racing line through a set of complex of turns, knowing that he was travelling at a speed that was lower than the speed he was supposed to be travelling at. What's the other car that's approaching going to have to do? Get out of the way. But Max is the victim. But Andrew Benson wants to just tell us about it. Just Andrew is the type of journalist that's going to just put it out there, not explain context, but he'll quote. Max Verstappen says he has lost all respect for George Russell after receiving a penalty at the Qatar Grand Prix. The world champion was unhappy at the role the Mercedes driver played in the incident. We always have to use the term the world champion when we talk about Max Verstappen. That's why we like writing about Max, isn't it, Andrew? Andrew gets a bonus every time he includes that term about Max Verstappen. Verstappen was given a one-place grid penalty, which is underlined there, a link to a different article. Does Andrew tell us about what is the standard penalty for such an infringement? Does Andrew tell us that it's not a one-place grid drop, it's at least a three-place grid drop? And that I can't even think of a situation where there is a penalty imposed of just a one-place grid drop. It's a minimum of three. At the imposition of a one-place grid drop penalty, well, that's not really a penalty. It's negligible, isn't it? Why would that even be applied? Oh, you were on first, now you're on second. You're still on the front row. That really impacted Max's race, didn't it? That really gave Max a meaningful penalty in advance of today's race, where he committed an infringement that affected his fellow competitors' chances for that race. That was an effective penalty, wasn't it? But Red Bull are the victims, they'll tell you, for impeding Russell by driving unnecessarily slowly in qualifying on Saturday. It dropped his Red Bull from pole position behind the Briton on the grid. Verstappen was upset by Russell's behaviour when they went to the stewards to discuss the incident. And he gets the quotes out again. I was quite surprised when sitting there in the steward's room what was all going on, Verstappen said. Honestly, very disappointing because I think we're all here We respect each other a lot. And of course, I've been in that meeting room many times in my life, in my career, with people that have raced, and I've never seen someone trying to screw someone over that hard. And for me, I've lost all respect. Okay, so this is what Max Verstappen projects. Okay, Max Verstappen projects that I think we're all here, we respect each other a lot. Max Verstappen displays his respect for his other drivers by running them off the racing track. He is the only competitor out of 20 who consistently does that. The stewards, the FIA, fail to penalise him appropriately for that. Instead, they enable him to do that. Whenever Max Verstappen is given any form of penalty, which is always meagre whenever he does it, then Red Bull and Max Verstappen project themselves as being victimised by the FIA and those stewards. They blame it on nationalistic bias. They claim that it's British bias and somehow being anti-Dutch, anti-Verstappen, anti-Red Bull. It's because you all hate us, isn't it? No, it's because you have done something wrong. You have committed an infringement. You have done something that is not acceptable. And in fact, the penalty that you've been given is far too lenient, because the sort of conduct that you exhibit needs to be eradicated because it's dangerous and sets an awful precedent to the youngsters that actually look up to the kind of conduct that you exhibit, using you as a role model, using your driving style as their guide to how they think they can contest motor racing. If they do that, what's going to happen is far more incidents of collision is going to occur in motor racing, which is going to result in far more instances of injury. The Formula One sport facilitates that. The governing body of that sport, in charge of sporting fairness and safety, actively enable it. They are in charge of setting the example of safety for motorsport worldwide, and they facilitate the conduct of Max Verstappen and facilitate that example being given to the rest of the motorsport world. That is truly disgusting. But it's Max Verstappen who projects that we all respect each other a lot. We see that in Max Verstappen's communications on the radio. We see that in Max Verstappen's conduct on track, where the reality is Max Verstappen has zero respect for anybody else. Max Verstappen will ride roughshod over everybody else. Max Verstappen does not care, because Max Verstappen is a narcissist. The only person that Max Verstappen cares about is Max Verstappen. The only people that Red Bull care about are Red Bull. They're all of the same ilk. This is what the sport of Formula One is projecting and is actually impacting people's minds and behaviour with this narcissistic behaviour and this narcissistic conditioning to project to people that this is all acceptable. This is how you should behave if you want to be successful in this world. Fuck everybody else. It's all about you, and fuck everybody else along the way. But we all respect each other, don't we? We all respect each other, and for what he did, I don't respect him anymore because he was being nasty to me. What, after you got in his way and purposely sabotaged his chance of setting a pole position time, knowingly doing so. And yet you're the victim, aren't you here, Max? You're the victim. Andrew doesn't expose any of this. Andrew just, I'm just Andrew Benson from the BBC. I'm just putting out there the information that is there. Thanks, Andrew. we all know what you're really doing. Speaking to Dutch TV station Viaplay, Verstappen added, "He always acts extremely polite in front of the cameras, but if you sit together with him personally, he's a completely different person." Well, you are what you are, Max Verstappen, a narcissist. Somebody who is never in the wrong, has zero respect for anybody else, and the moment something goes against you, you're a victim. You can't take responsibility for when it's pointed out that you've done something wrong. As soon as somebody points out that you are in the wrong, you are the victim. The reason that they're saying you've done something wrong is because they've got a bias against you. They hate you. It's not because you've done anything wrong, is it, Max? It's not because you've committed an infringement. It's not because you've done something that's unacceptable. It's because they don't like me. Oh, look at me. It's not fair, everybody. Why are they being nasty to me? That's Max Verstappen. I truly can't. Truly. Okay, this is the other words that they project. Honestly. Truly. I used to have respect, but I no longer have that respect. Yes. Prior to this happening, I behaved in a manner where I fully respected George Russell. That is why I impeded him. I fully respected Lewis Hamilton. That is why I kept running him off the track. I fully respected Lando Norris. That is why I kept running him off the track and was willing to crash into him if he didn't back out. Yeah, I did respect them up until the time that they then complained about me, but that just shows you that they've got a lack of respect for me because they complained. Poor you, Max. Poor you, the narcissist. But your mate Giampiero Lambesi. Oh, yes. Yes, we showed them, didn't we, Max? Oh, yes, we showed them. See about that. Did it look like we were slowing down from there, did we, Max? Yeah, exactly the same. Verstappen, who went on to win the race while Russell finished fourth, is said to have discussed his feelings with the Briton before the race. Oh, Andrew's insiders have told him that. The timings of media interviews after the race on Sunday meant Russell was not asked about the incident. However, sources close to the Mercedes driver suggested that there was more of the story yet to come out. Oh, but Andrews thought he'd just give us a little tidbit of information. Thanks for that, Andrew. Let us know what you think in the comments section, Andrew. He is likely to be asked about it on Thursday, the media day before the season closing race in Abu Dhabi. Oh, there's some beef. There's some conflict. That'll get social media buzzing, won't it, Andrew? Oh, well done you. Well done you, Andrew. I have served, I will be of service. Of course you will, Andrew. Of course you will. You constantly are. Down on your knees. That's the dynamics of this show. Poor Max Verstappen, everybody. We should all feel sorry for Max Verstappen, who got a one-place grid penalty, when everybody else that commits a similar offence gets at least a three-place grid penalty. Max committed the offence when George was in this. Even the notion of this kind of steward's appeal is ridiculous when they get both drivers in to tell them what they thought in the comment section. Why do they need to do that? You have video camera footage, you have the onboard cameras, you have the cameras at that location of the track, you have the telemetry demonstrating both the speed that those drivers are travelling at and their inputs, their throttle inputs, their inputs on the brake. You can tell exactly what they are doing. You doesn't need their explanation. You can tell whether a driver is driving below the speed that they're required to drive at. You can tell by looking at what their movements are, whether they are aware. You can see if they're checking their mirrors. You can tell whether they've made an adjustment of their line. You can tell whether they are seeking to impede the other driver. It doesn't matter whether they tell you otherwise. You can look at the evidence. You can determine what it is that they're doing, and you can impose an appropriate sanction. You never do that, do you? Not when it comes to Max Verstappen. You let Max tell us what he thinks in the comments section, and that Max is the victim. Oh, this is a complicated case, this one. Oh, because neither driver was on their flying lap, and that changes the whole dynamics of this, say the stewards, to minimise the penalty that they apply to Max Verstappen. This is the narrative we've seen for the last 4 seasons within this show of a sport. Andrew Benson doesn't tell us about those dynamics. Andrew Benson continues to serve and will be of service. Just another example of what we're continually being presented with by the mind conditioning media and the mind conditioning show of Formula One, which is conditioning people to exhibit, to replicate the narcissistic values being championed by this show and its owners, the billionaires, Liberty Media, JC Malone, ultimately owned by the likes of BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. Capitalists. Those people that want to own everything so that we pay through the nose for everything and they get richer. They don't care about us, they care about themselves. And Max Verstappen is the poster child in Formula One of that dynamic. Thank you for your time.